introductions on stage for my hosting and emceeing duties, and then I'm going to come back on here. And in between, my friend Hannah, who has been my assistant for a lot of years, a lot of you guys know her, will be standing in for me and holding my space while I jump on to take care of my duties. And then I'll be back here. And a quick thing, we are going to have Tony Luisi on. So Brian, why don't you get started with some chatter, and let's see if we can bring Tony on soon, because I know he's sitting around waiting for us to give him an intro. And when you're ready to do that, I'll introduce him.
Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, so I'm actually in Boston, and so I left New York. I think I got out before the Pope caused too much craziness. But yeah, I'm excited. Definitely no let up today. Doing the hustle. So I'm excited. If everybody, thank you for joining us. This is episode 3, and we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to, if you guys can hit that tell a little bird over there, and we're going to bring in Ted's friend Tony, and we're going to get a little talk on. I'm excited as a fellow Italian to talk to another Italian from a passionate Italian. So Ted, if Tony's listening, you can hit the button to join the seat, and we'll bring you on, and then Ted, you can do the intro.
Well, Tony is an old buddy of mine. I worked with him back at 800 Flowers back in 1998, 90. I think it was 99. It might have been it was 99. I worked with him there in 99. So my tenure at 800 Flowers would have been a total disaster without Tony. The man knew his way around. He knows his way around everywhere he goes. He is an amazing guy. We connected. We're from different worlds. We're different kinds of guys, but we both have this attitude about our families, about our lives, about our jobs, about evolving and recreating ourselves. Tony introduced me to the No Let Up. He's the guy that gave me the bracelet. I told you guys about this a bunch of times. He gave me the sweatshirt and the warm-up suit. Tony does a lot with No Let Up around clothing and around raising money for charitable organizations. He's got people, celebrities, that live by the mantra. And, Tony saw the scale and stuff we were getting with the hashtag, and then, kept coming on the show. And he said, hey, I'd love to come on and talk about No Let Up. I'd love to support you guys, see, what else we can do with this thing. And Tony should be here. He was trying to get on a few minutes ago. Tony, you here, man? I want to give a quick intro because I have to jump inside and do a quick thing at the brand.
There he is. It's coming now.
Okay.
There he is.
There he is, Tony. Let's get your face, man. I want everybody to see how good looking you are.
Yeah, right. You still have a sense of humor.
By the way, Fanzo said that something because I said to him, I go, listen, Tony's a real Italian guy. So, be prepared. He says what he thinks. He means what he says. He's an awesome guy. And I am going to jump into my event for a moment. And I'd love you to introduce yourself to Brian and start telling everybody what we really want to know is how this No Let Up thing started for you, what it means to you, and some of the amazing things you've been doing to support people with.
Okay, thanks, Ted. How are you, by the way?
I'm doing good, man. Like I said, I had a long day yesterday in Minneapolis. I'm here in New York tomorrow morning. I got to be up early. I'm heading to Philly to visit my daughter at college for the first time. I'm crossing my fingers that I'll get more than about 30 minutes. I'm hoping for about 90. Right. We're negotiating on that now, so I'll let you know how it turns out.
No dinner with the Pope?
No dinner with the Pope. He turned down my invitation, but, I think my daughter was relieved.
Well, enjoy, all right?
Okay.
Brian, how are you, Brian?
I'm doing great, Tony. Nice to meet you. So, yeah, I'd love to hear more about you. I heard a little bit from Ted, but, yeah, I'd love to hear more about you and the background behind No Let Up.
Well, there's probably a lot to tell about No Let Up, but I think one of the things that I kind of got from Ted a little bit is you guys have kind of forged a little bit of a friendship as well as a little passion for each other. And I kind of, when I stumbled upon what you guys were doing accidentally, actually people called me to tell me, hey, by the way, somebody's doing some internet thing with No Let Up, and they're talking about No Let Up. And I got a hold of Ted, and I listened to the first 2 shows, and I got to tell you, I'm real impressed. I think it's great you're doing this, and you guys certainly got to keep this up and find ways to continue to grow this. And if I can help you in any way, I certainly will. Brian, where are you located?
I'm actually I live in Virginia now, but I'm in Boston on a layover on my way back to Virginia. I left New York City this morning, so but I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh, so that's where the Pittsburgh goes. Yes, okay. Sir.
You ever hear of a guy named Bruno Sammartino?
I have not.
All right, he's from Pittsburgh. Look him up.
I will. I'll have to. So yeah, give me a little background. I would love to know more about you. What do you do for a living? What's your background, and how'd you kind of break into kind of talking about No Let Up?
Well, really, the story of No Let Up is really quite simple. It was always related to sports, and forgetting the age, weight, and hair. At one time, I played college ball, and we used to we used to have a saying that we used, and that was no let up. No matter what your obstacle was, you kept fighting. If it was the fourth quarter and you were down by a touchdown, it never changed anything. And we continued to use that terminology, no let up. And over the years, it just became part of my brand and kind of the way that I carried my life and the way that I kind of worked with others. It really kind of came to a head in 2009. I was asked to become a coach for Celebrity Apprentice. And that was the year Khloe Kardashian, Annie Duke, Joan Rivers were all part of that Celebrity Apprentice crew. And my role was each week to work with a different celebrity to help them with their task. So they needed help with marketing tasks and all of that. So the fourth week, I'm assigned to Joan Rivers, and she says, okay. She says, I want you to meet me at 4:30 in the morning in Manhattan, and here's the address. I said, excuse me, 4:30 in the morning. I lived in Bayville, which, is kind of a hike. So, of course, I did what I was told. So I drive into Manhattan. I go down into Soho. And I pull up to this building, and there's a sign on the wall on the front of the building that says, God's love, we deliver. Excuse me. And I go inside, and it's now about 5:30, 5:45, and there's Joan Rivers making breakfast for, I don't know, probably 1,000 various people. What Joan would do every morning is she would go to this location, downtown Manhattan, Hudson Street. It was a charity, and she would help cook, prepare, serve meals for the needy, the homeless, the bedridden, the ones inflicted with AIDS, cancer, diabetic people that couldn't get out of bed and function. It's now 7:30. We finished preparing 1,000 meals. She says, all right, jump in that van and go deliver. Delivering 1,000 meals for breakfast. And I think my day's over. It's 10:30. She says, be back here at 2:30 for dinner. So I gave her back at 2:30 and I did it. And then, we talk about brand a lot. Joan was a phenomenal lady, and she had her brand persona. But the truth is that her heart was like the size of Manhattan. And I actually spent some quality time with her, and she said, the one thing I'll never regret is giving back or trying to work with others or trying to inspire others. And she's the one who encouraged me to kind of formalize No Let Up, and to help charities and to help people that needed inspiration and to try to build a brand around No Let Up. And, I miss her dearly. She was actually a really phenomenal lady, but she kind of gave me the motivating force to go out and try to do something. And then right after that, it kind of took off. I mean, we're not a brand that you're going to see every day in the paper. We're the brand that, I wear 3 of these No Let Up bracelets. I don't know if you can see them on the camera, but my goal every day is to go home with just one. And what I try to do during the day, because I do interact with lots of folks during the day, I try to find somebody that I encourage every day. And I say, hey, listen, whatever your day's doing, whatever you got cooking, I just want to tell you, no let up. Keep fighting, stay inspired, keep working. You had a bad day at the office, don't worry about it. Go home, kiss your wife, pet your dog. Tomorrow's another day.
Tony, I want to jump in for a second. I love that because I wear my bracelet all the time, and I've worn other ones in the past. This is the only one I wear that people say to me, where do I get one of those? Can I have one of those? And I've given away, how many you sent me last time. I'm down to like 2 left. So I love the fact that you make that a regular part of your day.
Well, that's just it, Ted. I mean, you wear the bracelet, but at the same time, you must interact with tons of people every day. And when you see somebody that needs encouragement, or you see somebody that's challenged, or you see somebody that's inflicted with some obstacle, what else can you say to them? But no let up, keep fighting. Just stay the course. It sometimes, I hate to use the sports analogies, Ted, but you don't always measure a winner by the final score.
Hey,
a lot
man.
of times, the way you play the game, the way you carry yourself.
Well, like Winston Churchill always said, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Keep going, right? Yeah.
Keep going, do it.
Yeah. And I love it. And I think actually the sports analogy works well, especially for me in the sense that, sometimes it's 3rd and long and you get that first down, but yet that still you got 90 yards to go, right? So I think that element where, you can't let up, you got to keep driving through, or, and there's so much, today I think that I love that story and hearing Joan Rivers side of it, right? Because I know only Joan Rivers from the the personality from on the TV side. But I can tell you, I love somebody that is raw and real and speaks their mind. It's what kind of connected Ted and I in many ways when we first connected. So like hearing that kind of story to me is like even inspiring, motivates me more behind it, because I think that's the kind of essence of what people really relate to today. The reason she had such a great brand and people couldn't get enough of her is because they knew they got a real her, and we got away from that for so long and everything that we were doing. And thankfully, I feel we're turning back towards a more people where they want more of those real people, and that's so exciting to hear.
That's pretty astute of you saying that, because I think there's some truth to the fact that we seem as a culture and as a society to be moving back to still being sensitive, but not being as political correct as we've always been. And the one thing about Joan, which I always admired, sometimes we'd say it was crossing the line, but she didn't worry about being politically correct. She was honest about her feelings. And sometimes, whether we like that or not, that was her brand. I mean, and if you think of it, look around at the brands that we admire. I mean, are they who they say they are?
Tony, that's always been your brand, man. You've always, come on. That's what I loved about you when I first met you. You're the first guy that sat me down and said, let me tell you the truth about this place. Because, you're not seeing what you really have to see. And I know that you're going to hit a wall. I'm going to walk you through it before you hit that wall. And you've always been that way. And that's one of the things I think we've always respected about each other. So I love that. Keep going, man. I want to hear some more.
No, but Ted, like you mentioned that when we first met, there was a lot of dynamics going there. And if you look at when you talk about a growth of a company or a growth of a brand, we were actually at Flowers at a very crucial time in their history. I mean, they were successful, but they still needed to further define who they were and who they were going to ultimately be.
Right.
And when I think of the Flowers brand, because I have a certain, affection for the McCanns. I think Jim actually taught me a lot. I think he taught me two things. He taught me smile, always be smiling. And when you give a gift, or when you try to do something with someone, you try to elicit emotion. And that's a lost art sometimes in the fields that we're in, because
I agree.
You don't think about the reality of it. Not the reality is the wrong word. The realness of someone. And I do a lot of sales and marketing, and I'll talk a little bit about the company I'm with now. But the fact is I think if we can practice being the best that we are of who we are, I think that's the reality of the type of person that where we can interact better with others and we can impress others and we develop our brand further. And I think one of the things that Flowers is very successful at is they were very good at delivering that message of we deliver an emotion. And that's their brand. I mean, if you think in essence, granted, it's the flower deliveries and all that, but they deliver an emotion. Their objective was to make someone feel happy, proud, condolence. What do you do when someone's born? What do you do when someone passes away? What do you do when someone's hired? Those are all things that elicit emotion.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I gave a keynote this week, which is why my voice is like it is right now, in New York at a Periscope summit about live streaming. And my focus of the keynote was really it was called "We Are Greater Than Me," and it was about the art of community and collaboration. It was really my focus. But I had a slide where I talked about really what we have to focus on creating is not, people don't want to buy more products, people don't want to be sold something, but they want an experience. And if you can deliver an experience that makes them feel something, make them learn something, make them inspired to do something, I think that is the game changer. And it's not easy to do that, but I do think that kind of embodies some of that no let up element of it, where you do have to start, you have to listen, you have to engage, you have to really build your audience, and it's not easy. There's no easy button. Unless someone can send me that in the mail, I will gladly take an easy button if someone had one. But for me, I love that part of the story. I'm curious from your side. Ted said that you were always kind of had the no let up. Where was it your parents? Was it your upbringing? What kind of inspired you to always? Because I know some of our audience is probably listening, going, I wasn't brought up in a family that said be yourself and don't ever quit. Some of my family said, go chase your dreams, don't be a failure, and that's a different approach. So I'm curious from your background, how did that kind of mold who you are today?
Well, I'll tell you, it started. And again, Ted's kind of, I guess you can even see, I'm an Italian American, but my family came over from Italy, and my parents, they didn't really speak English very well. And when I started getting involved in sports, I was kind of fortunate because I was a fairly good football player, baseball player, and he used to come to the games, and he would be trying to scream out to me, "Don't let up." But in Italian, it became "no let up." So actually, the phrase was "don't let up." But when you when you took it from Italian to English, it became "no let up." And that was a term that we used for many years. In fact, on Long Island in Nassau County, the Nassau County Football Coaches Association gives out an award every year, and it's called the No Let Up Award. They give it to someone who works with the youth, whether it be a coach, whether it be a mom, whether it be someone that's helped organize, those that, try to inspire young kids to, work that straight and narrow. So it really goes back a long way, but truth be told, that the term was, he was trying to say, "Don't let up," but in the when you took the Italian to English, it became "no let up."
No, I love that, and I'm Italian. My last name Fanzo, and my grandfather born in Italy, and I was raised in Pittsburgh and very blue collar, right? And I one of the things that was probably the thing that I loved the most is my dad had a candy company when we were in high school, and I have three brothers. I'm the oldest, and it was a very successful candy company, and everybody assumed that we would graduate high school, go to college, and then take over the family business. And my dad always instilled in us that it was like, we want you to find your passion, find your purpose, and chase it. And unfortunately for him, all three of us chose a different path, and he ended up selling off the business a couple of years ago. But for him, it was all about that, not only no let up, but, even beyond chase your dreams, go be yourself. You can fail, and I'll be here, but I want you to kind of live part of it. And I think that's part of that, Italian bringing up where, my grandmother and grandfather, my grandmother actually never drove. They were married for 69 years, and my grandmother passed away, and like 37 days later, my grandfather passed away, who was perfectly healthy, but lost his, companion. And they live that no let up type mindset. So I love hearing that, kind of background. And I'm excited that you kind of heard what we were doing, and it was something that you kind of saw as, because Ted has been a friend and a mentor, and I know you've known him even longer than I have, but it's crazy. I actually reached out to him via one tweet. I read his book, and I tweeted and said, "Hey, your book really spoke to me, and I don't feel like I'm a great salesman, but I'm a great person that believes in relationships." And he tweeted me back because he's so great at engaging, and I would have never imagined, you fast forward, almost 4 years later, and my kids call him Uncle Ted, and he's coming over, and that's the true power of what it was. And I loved his look out on life. He's been a great friend, a mentor, but I also think that's partially why great people kind of connect with great people, because part of that is like we want to help each other, but we also know that those people that are working hard, oftentimes need support. So I'm curious, from your experience, what are lessons you've had to kind of keep you motivated to always not let up and not kind of give in, through the tough times?
Well, that's a great. I
hope you guys don't mind. I'm back. I know Hannah looked a lot better in that square than I did.
She was getting a lot more props, and
well, that's why I put her there, just to get me props while I was gone. Tony, man, I just got to say something. I'm so glad you're here. I was a little worried because I know you'd never been on Blab before. And I know also, and I mean this sincerely, you're a busy guy. And we talked about this, what was it, last week? And you said, yeah, I'll check it out. And I thought maybe, you wouldn't show up, or you wouldn't have time, or you'd email me and say, man, I would have loved to have done this. But it's so awesome to have you here, man. I wish I saw you more often. The last time Tony and I were together, we were smoking cigars and drinking single malt on my front porch. And it was, I think he stayed many more hours than he expected when he first showed up.
No, it was a good night, actually. Well, Brian, to kind of to roll it back to your question, Ted and I are an example of what No Let Up's all about. I met Ted almost like just passing through. We spent maybe 6 months together, but there's, we're talking almost 30 years later. Maybe 20 years later, I'm sorry. The fact is that the common denominator for many of us is what inspires us and what drives us. And No Let Up just being a phrase, it's a little bit more than that. Are we the kind of folks that, whether we had a bad day or we got a bad grade or whatever it may be, are we the type of people that just feel defeated? I think where it becomes important, and not only from the Italian culture, but from all, is the fact that we need to look towards those that have inspired us. You need to, every once in a while, sit back and think of your mom, Ted, or Brian, think of your grandmother, or think of those that kind of impacted your life when you were growing up. Because those are the lessons learned in life that you're never going to be able to repeat, and you're not going to find it in the street. And no disrespect, you're not going to find it in social media, and you're not going to find it in a book. You've got to reach back to where you came from. You've got to reach back to your culture. You got to reach back to those that nurtured you, because they were good people. I mean, not everybody, had the kind of life that I had with parents that were supportive, but there's got to be somebody that's inspired you. And if you don't have somebody that inspired you, you've got to look towards that, or you've got to try to find a way to inspire others, or get involved, or find something that will motivate you and make you feel good about yourself and successful. And I think, the story related to what you talked about how this all began, it began because I had people that inspired me, not just from my immediate family, but those from around me. And I tried to take a little bit of what everybody had. I could never be my dad. I could never be someone else. I could never be Jim McCann. I could never be Ted Rubin. Just like you can't be Ted Rubin, Brian. But what you can do is you can try to assimilate some of the good characteristics that Ted has. You can try to nurture those, and you can incorporate that into your persona, into your brand, and then it becomes you.
No,
and that's what makes you successful.
No, I love it. I mentor some friends that are fellow millennials. I'm barely a millennial. I'm 34, but I always say listen, learn, and then be yourself. And I think that the be yourself part is the only part you can guarantee that's unique. And that is, something that really no one else can take from you. And not only is it what drives you, but it allows you to really be successful. I for a long time kind of looked at a lot of things that I was doing, and I thought I was chasing my purpose. And I had all this I wanted to work in technology and all these things. And I really started to discover what my true passion was and really what my North Star was. And it was not what I was chasing all these times. And it was, the things that I was doing. And it's not easy to make that pivot. And it's not sure as tech doesn't come with failures and pivots and a lot of things. But you brought up a great point. For me, when I started being myself and I started knowing where I came from, I don't need to know where I really need to go at the end of the day. I just need to know where I'm going tomorrow or at this moment. I'll worry about down the road when I get there. But, Ted, I'm curious. I know you jumped back in. Ted, I would love to hear from you. When you think of that, the no let up, I know your parents are extremely close to you and that they're the fuel that fires you. But your day to day right now, and you're hustling. I saw you in Minneapolis this week, and then all of a sudden you texted me you landed in New York City. You're in New York for the day. You're doing a hosting event. You're flying out tomorrow. I mean, that's a hell of a no let up type week that you're having. Where do you drive your fuel sometimes that you're unfortunately your parents have passed? Where do you kind of drive that today that kind of allows you to continue?
Well, first of all, it's just something that's always been within me. I always credit a lot to my junior high and high school wrestling coach, Ira Godbell. I mean, he was a guy that just instilled in me, and Tony and I have talked about this.
We'll talk about him.
Yes. I mean, I talk about this guy my whole life. I mean, I walk stairs 2 at a time. Every day I think about him because he always said, take stairs twice at 2 at a time, and you'll always stay in shape. I never hurt my ankles because every morning I twist out my ankles because he said, get those things worked up and, do little things. You don't have to work out at a gym every day for an hour. Get push-ups in when you can. I do most of my working out in and around things I'm doing. And he just taught me this never say die attitude. And what he used to say all the time is he would say it's never over. There's always tomorrow. There's always something else. And there'd always be a wise guy on the team or somewhere that'd say, well, coach, what about when you die? And he'd say, it's not over then either because your legacy lives on. And, for him, it was like, Yogi Berra used to say, and God bless Yogi Berra, he just passed away. And Tony and I are both big Yankee fans. I'm sure Tony still has the Derek Jeter bat. I bought him a number of years ago. But
1996 World Series champion bat, all right?
It's right. And Yogi Berra said it's not over till it's over. And my coach used to say it's never over. He said there's always another match, there's always another game, there's always another thing, there's always a friend or somebody that needs you. And that's the way I perceive no let up. That even when my life starts getting on track or things are going good, whether it's for a week or 2 a year, there's always a friend that needs support or a family member that needs something. Or truth be told, I reach out to people I haven't heard from in a while. And I go, is everything okay? And some of them will reach back and say, well, I didn't want to say anything because it's not my style, but I'm having some troubles. And, I was just reading in the dad bloggers community I'm on, there's a dad who was writing, asking advice to other dad bloggers. And it's a close community. I'm not going to mention his name, but he was saying, listen, my daughter's 14, and every year for the last 10 years I've taken her to Disney, but I fell in on some hard times. I don't have any money, and he's a divorced dad, which really I related to. And of course, he wants to make this special for his daughter. And he was just asking someone for advice of how to get his head straight, number one, and what can he do to make it special without having a big budget for that. And I got to tell you that inside me, I just reached out to him and I said, I went on to Facebook because we're connected. And I just reached out. I said, I asked him some questions and I want to know more. And I want to figure out how I can help. I don't know if I can make a difference, but if I can make a difference just by telling him that just by being with his daughter, it's going to make a difference, then I want to do that. So for me, that's where No Let Up comes from, is there's just always somebody out there in your network or the people that are going to need your support. And there was a time in my life where, I'd have that attitude that, oh God, Tony just reached out and I guess he's got another problem. But now I look at it as an opportunity. I said, Tony reached out. Here's a chance for me to make a difference in somebody's life who I really care about. So, when I was married, and a lot of you guys know I had a really bad time with my ex, and she caused me a lot of issues with my kids. And she always used to complain when friends would ask for favors. And we just had such a difference of opinion on this. Because I'd say, I love when people ask me for favors because, first of all, I'm building up a bank of people that the day comes when I need something. And it always amazes me when I fall on something, whether it's a problem with my kids or something else, how many people are stepping up saying, what can I do to support you? And I say, really, I'm just surprised you're there. He goes, why? I always hear you looking to support other people. So I think that's where it comes from for me. It's just that it just never ends. And this trial of life, and it's like a trial, man. It goes on and on. So we find our good times, and then I find good times very often in what other people are doing, what I can do to support them. So, and again, it's why I love Tony. We're different guys, and Tony does have a young daughter, but he also he has 3 bulking boys that he used to have to try to feed, which was, I'd go to the supermarket, I'd buy a couple of chicken fingers. Tony go to the supermarket and fill up his entire car with eggs and beef. Must have been crazy, but so and then for me, it's about being there for my girls. Half the reason I work my ass off is because I want to be able to be there for them financially, also when they want and need. I want to be able to support them. And people have been asking me how my daughter's doing in college, and I hold this picture of her on this guy's shoulders wearing a halter top from maybe like a Made in America. The beers in their hands. I'm like, she's doing what she should be doing, becoming her own person, getting away from the home, getting away from her mom who's tremendously controlling, and learning things for herself and experiencing things for herself. And I love it. And like I said, No Let Up, man. Tony, I wear this every freaking day. I use the hashtag. I've added it to my brand. I've added to the whole return on relationship thing. And Brian and I saw it. One of the reasons I love Brian is I met him, and he was going through his own issues with what he was doing in technology and the company he was working for. And some of the major conversations we've had is about being yourself and not following the flock and not worrying about what other quote unquote influencers are doing or what they think is new, or the group of people that sit around patting each other on the back telling them how great they are instead of going out and making a difference yourself. So I hope that answers your question, Brian.
No, yeah, I love it. I would love to hear, Tony, from your experience, what is your approach to, because I think a big driver in a lot of what you hear is that, you're not afraid to fail, but, we all know that failure is kind of part of success. But
that's why races. So I'm not.
And I would just love to hear your approach to that, because I think I see some of the people in the comments, and thank you all that are kind of jumping in here, and we're loving this discussion and really bringing this message of No Let Up. I think not only helps inspire each other, but we're growing here, like kind of what Ted was saying, and kind of reaching out. And my hashtag that I kind of owned is very simple. It's show you care. And it really embodies what Ted was saying, is if you can find ways to show you care, and especially when someone feels like they're failing or they're stepping out. So I would love kind of what has been, when we're thinking failure, how does that kind of play into No Let Up?
Well, because it's really not about failure. I mean, I think one of the things, it's lessons learned. I mean, I work in a company now. The company I work for a company called Vehicle Tracking Solutions. We're a technology company, and we develop fleet management software. Transportation industry, and I happen to be the oldest individual in the company. And there's a
surprise.
Right. So I work with a lot of young people, and the passion that they have is amazing. But when I look at them and they say, well, why would you do it that way? Because they get so used to a way of doing things, because it's a comfort level for them. And I think part of my role as I become a little bit more senior is to try to push that comfort zone. There's nothing wrong with pushing that comfort zone. I mean, progress progress involves some risk. As long as it's a calculated risk and it's a careful risk, I'm not telling you to go jump off a bridge. What I am saying is don't ever become so complacent where you think that you can't move out of that zone, or you can't try to improve yourself or make yourself better. And again, Brian, I apologize. I don't know how many people may be listening, watching, tweeting, but I ask everybody that's listening, why not just reach out to one person they know today and just say, I just wanted to show you that I care, or just say, no, let up.
Tony, it's just by the way, this is a great point. I'm sorry to cut you off for a second, but it can be that easy. You don't have to be there for someone or send them money or show up at their event or be there all day. Just calling and saying, what can I do to support you? Or just, I'm thinking about you, right?
That's the no let up brand. I mean, the idea is that it doesn't have to be an event. I mean, being in sales, Ted, there was always a pending event and there was create. The role that we all play in all this is we're creating. We need to create that passion or try to uncover it or discover it or try to help someone realize that they have it. Listen, Brian, you must, just like you must have the same life situation, kids, family, health, sickness, all of that. But you know what? If you have the opportunity to meet somebody and just say, no, let up to them, they may laugh. They may say, well, what is that all about? But you know what? Just tell them to say it a couple of times a day.
Absolutely. Life's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain, baby, because the rain just keeps coming. And every time you think you've got a handle on it or you got something wrapped on it, you might have a challenge. Your friend has a challenge. Your family has a challenge. Your neighbor has a challenge. Or you see something horrible in the news, or there's a catastrophe somewhere in the world. And, it's ongoing. And there's always something you could be doing to be involved in. And like Brian and I have talked about, and Tony, you and I have talked about, is no let up isn't just about helping other people, it's about helping yourself. It's about finding time for yourself, whether it's vacationing or just turning off for a little while, or getting your buddy Tony to finally show up a second time for cigars and single malt on your porch, because he's a very busy guy and he can't find his way to your house often enough. So just saying.
And winding road.
So for those of you
I think I said this to you on one of the messages I sent you on Facebook. If you think about it, the three most important things that we could really do is we can try to enjoy this ride that we're on, because it is a ride. We can try to have balance, and the balance is what we fight for, because you're right. How do I take a vacation? How do I get to see Ted? How do I go spend time with my children? How do I deal with the stress, the everyday stress? There's got to be some balance. And I think the third piece to that is that's why I incorporate No Let Up. And I'd say to everyone, enjoy the ride, have some balance, and keep going. Don't let up. Because it's not only about improving yourself and how you inspire others, but relate it to business. I mean, think about a business today. If they're concerned with that core value proposition, every core value proposition should have a statement in there about showing you care or no let up. Why can't it be that human interaction? They say, well, customer service is important to us. We're customer centric. Fact is that we need to have a value proposition in business as well as in our personal life. It says, I inspire to be better. I will not quit at the end of the day. No matter what happens today, I'll show up tomorrow. I won't call in sick. I am here for the long haul. And those are the kind of things that we have to relate into the business world. That's what makes the difference. So,
no, absolutely. And we all look at those people. Those people in your company, in your church, in your synagogue, the ones who will always show up. It doesn't matter if they're not feeling well. It doesn't matter what happens. They're always getting there. They're always showing there. I mean, I used to look at people and go, they'd say, oh, it's snowing. I'm not coming in. It's snowing. So get on the freaking train. I mean, what's the big deal? I'm staying home because I have a cough. Really? You're going to have a cough probably 20 times this year. And I'm not talking about people that work from home. I'm talking about people that just are finding any excuse not to do that. Whereas the ones who will always be there. The ones you call and you say, listen, I'm asking a favor. I know it's a lot. And the first words out of their mouth was, just tell me what you need. And you know how to look to those people and that doesn't mean you have to be that person, because no let up might mean that you need to give more time to yourself or to your family or to something else, and you can't give up that time. So, again, that's the way I see it. Look at you and I, Tony. How many times have we seen each other in the last 20 years since we stopped working together well, no, more than that, because for a while we had the whole thing going on with Free Lotto remember, so there was a year or so we saw each other a lot, but other than that, but the minute we're together, we're just as close as we ever were.
Well, that's the connection, and I think part of it has to do with the fact that part of it has to do with the fact that well, part of the fact is, and Brian, this relates to something you had said before. We talked about before. It's about letting people know who you really are, and not being afraid to let people know who you are, because uh, you know, again, not to use the term politically correct, but the fact is, we're always so careful about showing who our real face is or what we really believe in. As long as we're respectful in how we deliver that message, and as long as we're straight and we're honest and we're open-minded, I think we need to be that way. And Ted's always been that way with me, and vice versa. And I think that's why our friendship has lasted for so long.
So no, I love that, and and we have some people that are asking questions. We've got lots of great comments, and this is a great question. It's actually one that hits home for me as a solopreneur side of the no let up, and the question is really how do part-time entrepreneurs prevent burnout? Juggling 9 to 5, trying to build a business and ensure their family is not neglected. And I will guarantee from my side that that there is no easy button, and I don't have the exact answer. I try really hard to focus on being 100% in the moment when I'm having that moment, no matter what it is. So when I'm on stage, I'm 100% of me. You get 100% of who I am. When I'm at home and my daughters want me, I have 3 daughters. I'm 100% right there with them. If they want me, I'm going to be there. So that's what's kind of driven me. And actually, I co-host another show with Rachel Miller, who just dropped in here, and she said something that is a sticky note on my computer at home that is driving me. And it says, learning to say no without giving explanation is a vital life skill, and saying no is hard, and that's something that I'm learning. I'd love to hear your thoughts just on what from, as far as no let up. I love no let up even more than hustle, because I think hustle assumes that for me, I look at, sometimes people look at hustle and says, if you're working 80 hours a week, you're successful. And I question that, because I think if you're working smarter, not just harder, that's really where you become successful. So what are your thoughts there on someone kind of avoiding burnout?
Well, first of all, I agree with you that we have to all learn how to work smarter than harder. But for anybody that's got the passion to go build something on their own, no mistake, it's ours. And there are sacrifices that you have to make. I think one of the things that I've always tried to do is I've always tried to stay in the moment. Although I may be busy on a project, although I may need a proposal that I have to get out, although I'm working on a presentation, if my son or my daughter needed my attention, I had to take that 2 minutes to do that. But there's no shortcut. I mean, if whoever asked you that question, if they have a passion to build something, unless they're a superb manager and they've surrounded themselves with the right people, there's no shortcut. I mean, it's hours and it's time, but that becomes your life to an extent. So what you don't want it to do, you don't want it to whack you out of balance. You've got to maintain that balance in your life, because if you don't keep it, foundation is gone. One of the times your business will fail if you don't find a way to somehow find a balance in the way you work your personal life, your spare time, your professional time, but you've got to try to maintain some level of consistency.
No, I couldn't agree more. And it was interesting. Like, for me, I was speaking at this event this week, and it was the most diverse crowd I've ever spoken to for my entire life. It was a Periscope summit for everybody that's using this new app, and it was everybody from all ages and all walks of life. We had all different sexes, all different people from different industries. And I'm usually speaking in front of people in specific industries and specific niches. And I can tell you, one of the things that was really inspiring for me was really hearing everybody's story, but then people coming up to me and saying, like, where'd you come from? How did what was your overnight success? And they would hear my story, and they would realize there is no such thing as an overnight success. Someone puts in the work, someone puts in the labor. So, and just because they weren't on your radar and all of a sudden they snuck up on you, doesn't really mean that they hadn't put the hard work in all beforehand. And not only does everybody have a story, but everybody kind of is kind of grinding and doing all those things. And I think even from a no let up perspective, not only success and failures, but I'm so glad you brought up passion, because it was one of the things my first boss, when I left the company, he gave me an exit interview. And in the exit interview, he said, Brian, if anything, he is so passionate, he could even be passionate reading the phone book. And that was what he kind of, enabled in me. I remember, it sticks with me. This was, 14 years ago when he told me that he was like, don't ever give up your passion for everything you do. And I think that's something that now I think people, especially a millennial generation, are starting to embrace and embody. And I think that's why you were saying, you love working with, some of the younger generation that you're working with now, because they are fueled by that underlying passion to just really never give up.
Think of it, Ted. Ted, picture this. We're 18 years of age, and we have something called Facebook.
Oh my God. Forget about 14 years of age. How about just getting into the business world and having something like the social tools that are available now? I mean, look, I'm fortunate enough, you're fortunate enough, Brian's fortunate enough, but even me, I was able to help build Elf Cosmetics in 2008, 2010 as social started first scaling. And I discovered this amazing ability and something that was so natural to who I am. And now all of a sudden, I look and I say, hey, what if I was able to do this back, at my first companies and everything we were doing? And what I love is when I meet guys who are, there's a guy named Dave Henry, who's a mentor of mine. He's the ex-CMO of Winn-Dixie and Price Chopper. And I love bringing Dave to meetings because he goes into these meetings with guys that he trained when they were kids, and they're not putting social budgets together. He's looking at them going, man, if I had this shit when I was a CMO, oh my God, I could have blown up the world. And how could you guys pass it up? And I love that because I'm bringing in a guy that trained them, that they're expecting to agree with them, that they shouldn't be dedicating resources to this. And he's sitting there looking at them going, what are you, nuts? I mean, the trust that you can build, the loyalty you can build, the advocacy you can build. There are ways to track this. And it's not like, oh my God, it's wasted dollars. And I mean, tell me how you're tracking TV, radio, and billboards. And don't tell me you're not still using them, because of course you are. And the majority of your budget is still going there, but you're not worried about tracking that the way you're worried about tracking this stuff. And the relationships you can build. I mean, tell me that Ritz-Carlton worries about how are they drawing a direct line to the training and time they put into their employees to how it's hitting their revenues. No, they're tracking it over time, over quarters, over years. They're tracking it by sentiment. They're tracking it by net promoter scores, by share of voice, but by the conversation that's happening about their brand. And that's, what's happening. So yes, oh my God, Tony, but back then you and I would have started, 3 companies by now, I think.
Well, no, it's just because the environment I'm in now, John, the CEO of the company, he has put so much resource into making it not easier, but for everyone that works here to have a knowledge base. I mean, and that knowledge base didn't exist for us. I mean, today they use Salesforce. We use Tickler files. I mean, how did we keep track of somebody that we wanted to call?
But Tony, what's scary is I walk into some of these supermarkets around the country, and they still have spreadsheets all over the fucking walls. I mean, what is the deal with that? They're running programs all around the country in different districts and different towns, and they're keeping track of it on their walls. I mean, it's one of the people ask me, why can I be at the beach so much? Because I work from there. Because I keep it all right here or right here. And it's amazing to me, the database. We were talking about this today at Brand Innovators, the databases that still don't talk to each other. And there's 2 reasons for that. Companies that don't want to spend the money, and obviously Brian here understands technology way better than I do, but they don't want to spend the money to have those databases talk to each other. But more importantly, it's the silos of control that the customer service team doesn't want the marketing team knowing what they're doing, knowing what the sourcing people are knowing what they're doing. I mean, it kills me when I'm on the phone with a brand and or customer service, and they transfer me another line and they ask me my account number again. Like, seriously? You guys don't have that together? And forget about that. That's the basis of it, just the account number. They don't have the conversation. I asked you guys, don't you have it down in your notes what I spoke about last time I called? Well, you didn't call the service department, you called the sales department. Like, okay, so look at their notes. Oh, we can't do that. Like, seriously? I have to go through this all again? So yes, we would have had a blast. And I just think that this has to be looked at so much more holistically. This has to be looked at breaking down barriers, getting rid of friction, fixing things like that. I got to run. I got to introduce somebody else. I'll be back.
You're good. No, and actually, what Ted was saying there.
Who's the pinch hitter for Ted?
That's Hannah. That's Ted's assistant.
Hey guys, how's it going?
I like to call Ted's upgrade, so that works as well. So yeah, for sure, 2.0. But I love kind of Ted's story on and his approach, what he was talking about with technology and business. And I think I introduce myself now and the work I do as a change evangelist. And it usually kind of blows people's mind, but I'm a technology guy. But so much of the time when I went in to help companies embrace technology, I never got to the technology because I helped them fix people and culture and process and strategy problems. And then it was all about how do you embrace change. And ultimately, the technology ended up being the easy part to train because they can watch a video. We can do that down the road. But most companies look at the technology or blame the technology, or to Ted's point about like data silos. I believe for me, there's two things that just don't exist. I think control and perfection are illusions. I don't think either one of those exist. And too many companies, too many people today still believe if they hold on to something, that means they control their own destiny. I disagree. I believe the power becomes in the collaboration in the community. But I would love to hear what are your thoughts just on the impact of change, and not only like the no let up, but in what you kind of do that kind of keeps you driving.
Well, it's funny because, you've heard it before many times. We all know it. It's a cliche, but the only constant thing is change. I mean, the thing that I try to think about most is at a senior level guy now, older, gentleman, the back nine of my life. How do I continue to evolve as a person, and how do I get better as an employee? How do I get better as a friend, as a husband? As a brother, a sister. How do I get better for my company? Like, what do I need to do to improve and change? And I think, what we have to kind of, at least what drives me on that, is that I always do want to get better. And you use the word perfection. I mean, I'm far from perfect. I certainly don't claim that, but I do try to be the best that I can be. And I do take pride in the fact that, I want to go to work and I want my boss to be happy and I want the people around me to be happy. And sure, I want them to like me, but it's not the end of the day if they don't. But I certainly want to be the best that I can be at any point, because I have to continue to evolve and change. Once we stop doing that, Brian, we lose all facets of living this life of really what we're here to do. And I've never been one to ever take a shortcut when it came to getting to the office and doing the work. But I like to be around people and do that. But if I, at my age, almost 60, if I said to myself, look, this is the way I sell, this is the way I market, I don't need to listen to anybody else and the way they do it, I wouldn't be around much longer. I wouldn't be very successful. I have to continue to listen and evolve and try to make myself better. I mean, again, that's, people call it different things, but that's part of the no let up persona, is that I am always open to change. I'm always open to get better. I'm always open to climb that mountain. I'm not afraid to continue to do that. Fear is not part of my, MO.
And you're not afraid to keep wearing a tie.
We do that here. I am at a company that believes. We have the one thing, though, that today I did wear a 2-color tie, but normally I try to up a little bit. It's a change for me too, because the last 10 years, Brian, I've spent my time building retention and loyalty programs for companies. And it was kind of funny. People say, well, what do you do for a living? I said, well, to be honest, I teach companies how to talk to their customers. Now, can you imagine that people pay me to tell them how to talk to their customers? I mean, what's wrong with the world today? If a company that's successful doesn't know how to communicate, doesn't know how to build rapport, doesn't know how to build relationship, I don't know, how do they do that?
Well, Tony, be thankful they don't know how to do that, because I say this every day. People say to me, listen, does it bother you that companies are not really getting to that point where they've really embraced return on relationship and understand how to properly use social and engage? And I go, no, I love it, because I can still keep giving the same fucking presentation every goddamn year. And I get these guys going, so how long does it take you to get your presentation ready for an event? I go, fucking hey, I just grab one of my presentations and I throw it in. I spoke at the same events, SDL Innovate, 2 years in a row. And my second year there, I said, I want you guys to realize that 5 of the slides from last year are the exact same slides as last year. And you want to know why? Because you fucking people aren't listening.
Nothing's changed.
Still not doing it. So they're still goddamn here. So I had these 2 slides. I had the exact same slide twice. Once it was, what's not a social media, how does not being social? I mean, what does not work as a social media policy? Not being social. And I put up a picture of me saying the same thing the year before with the same slide behind me.
Timestamp.
Right. Like, come on, guys. If you're not going to listen, first of all, you're making my job easier. So I don't mind, because I can keep pitching the same thing. But you're right. It's just amazing to me that some of these companies don't know how to communicate, don't know how to engage with people. And part of it is they're thinking that all these digital tools and all these social tools means they don't have to do it anymore because it will be done for them automatically, and that's bullshit. There's still people behind these faces, as you know. And what I love is the tools like Periscope and Blab and Meerkat and all these others are coming out, which are making us be social again. They're making social actually social, because let's do Blab like this. Okay, everybody stop talking. I don't know. It's not working.
Well, maybe this is like you guys are a little bit more astute than I am in this whole social media aspect. But think of it, maybe we're into social media 2.0 or 3.0, because the fact remains the same that I think one of the challenges that we have is with some of the younger generation, they're so glued into it, they've got it mastered. But do they gain the other skill sets that they need? Do they know how to communicate? So things like what we're doing right now are phenomenal tools to help us kind of become well-rounded, maybe balanced, maybe talk about no let up. But the fact remains the same that if I spend my time just doing this and not really communicating, is that beneficial?
Well, what I'll tell you is I actually think that a lot of young people are really learning how to communicate. I think that most of them use social what they need to learn is the marketing tactics and the real how to build a brand to use these tools. But what they're doing incredibly well is communicating on social and engaging on social and using these tools to actually talk to people, to communicate with them. I love watching kids use Snapchat. I hear people all the time saying, damn, I just got to get my kids to put these things down at dinner. But at the same time, there are marketers complaining that they don't know how millennials and young people use these tools. Well, watch your kids. See how they communicate with their friends. When Snapchat was in its early stages, when you couldn't make videos and all the other things you can do with it, I loved watching my daughter communicate without words. She'd make faces. She'd go, and she'd do 5 different pictures in a row, and she'd have a conversation just with facial expressions. And to me, that was remarkable.
Well, it's amazing how they've mastered. I mean, they seem to know how to do all of that. But the question is, how do they relate that to the business world? How do they relate that to formulating themselves into, I don't know, a productive environment, a productive business, or something that they hang their hat on?
Well,
because
you know what?
Social skills. Can they speak? Can they write? Can they do all those things? I think of that sometimes.
Well, the challenge I have when I talk to, whether it's my kids, but obviously with my kids, a little different because they don't necessarily want to talk to me. But when I talk to kids who do want to talk to me, so kids, students or kids in college or recent grads who are coming to me for advice.
Sorry.
Okay. So what I find happening with them is that they're building great networks and communities amongst them and their friends, but what they're not doing is using social to build influence and to build their personal brand. Because look, just like when we were young, we think we have plenty of time ahead of us. We're not going to we'll do that when we need to do it. We don't want to do it now. And what I'm trying to stress to them is that there's no time like the present. Like, you don't want to build that following when you first need it. My daughter would say to me, what good is your Twitter following if you can't get me tickets to One Direction? When she was 15 and 16 years old. And I'd say, well, why don't you build your presence, because then they'll take you seriously. And she's like, oh, I don't want to do that. And all of a sudden she's realizing maybe I should have done that. Just like companies that say, oh, we don't have budget for that now. Then they call us in and they say, we need it now. We need it tomorrow. Fanzo, what are you doing, man? You walk into your gate? Oh, Brian must be making his way to his plane.
No, I'm not making I wanted to get away from the intercom.
Oh, the noise. Oh, okay.
I was like, I had to get away from the intercom, so I had to walk across the gate as I'm in the JetBlue terminal, and they were talking loud on the microphone.
You look very serious when you were walking out there.
Is everything all right, Brian?
Oh yeah, everything is great.
Okay, you got to give me Brian's address so I can send them a whole bunch of gear.
So listen, I just want to say something that, this has been what Brian and I have tried to do in previous Blabs is bring different guests in, bring people on to talk, from the audience, people that are showing up. We really wanted to make this conversation about Tony, about all the amazing work he's done, about how Tony inspired me, not only as a person, as a friend, but with this whole no let up concept. And, like I said, he showed up at my door one day and he had this big bag of stuff and he had warm-up suits and sweatshirts. And the first thing he said to me was, I don't want you to get the wrong idea. This isn't about the clothing. I might be selling it, but that's not what it's about. It's about the mindset. And that's where Tony and I, like I said, have always seen eye to eye. Attitude, perspective, which leads to mindset. And, that's how you make everything happen. I talk to companies and I say, when I look to hire, I look to hire for passion and train for skills. You can always train for skills. You can't teach passion. And, it's the same thing if you guys have seen the movie Rudy, and I love the movie Rudy. And when the coach is talking and he's yelling at one of the scholar athletes who got a scholarship, and he's saying, this kid's here and he's working too hard. He goes, if you had half his heart, you'd be an All-American. Because and then he said to Rudy, when Rudy asked him if he could suit up for one game, he goes, kid, you've earned it. Like, I wish the rest of my players had your heart, because that's what really carries you through. And Tony, that's what I got from you. And you were always passionate, and we had our fun moments at 800 Flowers, getting crazy and and getting angry at people and going to the stairway so we could talk with anybody hearing us. And Tony's the first guy that taught me there's always a meeting somewhere in this office where there's food that gets left over. So it's like, and because we were in Long Island, you couldn't just stop out like in the city to get food yet. And neither Tony or I wanted to take a lunch hour because we didn't have time for that. So Tony taught me how to find the best places for food in the company.
So it was a little bit more than that, but yes.
Yeah, well, it was a lot more than that.
Listen, Ted, I really enjoyed this, Brian. It's really been great meeting you. I like to.
I hope you guys will connect outside of here.
Try to carry things forward. I know you have a lot of people that follow you or listen to you, but I really do ask if you can reach out to everyone and ask them to just call one person today or tomorrow.
Yes.
And ask them to just say to someone that needs it, no let up, inspire somebody, or even write back to you guys and tell the story about what inspires them, or relate somehow what they do in everyday life or in their business world, But I really do encourage others to ask to make that phone call. And whether it's saying show you care.
Right. And it's connecting. And by the way, as much as I whenever I speak, I hold up my phone and I tell people to take a month and every day call somebody. But it doesn't have to be that, because some of us are pressed for time. So send out a text to ask somebody. Shoot out. I go on Twitter and I serendipitously reach out to people I don't know, like this guy in the Dad Blogger group or other places. Just reach out to somebody and just say hello. Text a bunch of people. Send out some emails. And then also pick up the phone whenever you have that time. My mother used to say to me before she passed, she'd go, if there weren't, and she used to call it car phones. If there weren't car phones, you boys would never call me. And of course, I have a Jewish mother who had to put a little guilt on me. So my answer would always be then, Mom, let's be thankful for.
No, but seriously, think of it like, I don't know how many people. So if there's 10 people out there right now that are listening to you, if they've all heard the no let up, they've heard no let up today. Can't they just call 10 people and tell them no let up?
Well, everybody better do that. You guys are all here, and this is our expectation. We want you to tweet at us. It's Tony's handle is no let up. Obviously, iSocial fans, and me. We want to hear from you guys. Just tell us. Make it as simple as I made that call. # no let up. That's all we want to hear. I made a call. I made one call. I made 10 calls. You don't have to give numbers to it. I made a call. And # two let up. Let us see those. Let us see those tweets. We want to see them. We love you guys. I've got to get back to this conference. Brian's got to get on his plane. Tony probably has to go back to work because I saw his boss behind him making faces at some point, or one of the guys from his office. We'll see you next week at 3:00. And Brian, if you and Tony want to close some stuff up after I jump off here, go for it. Love you guys. Safe travels, Brian. And Tony, a little scotch soon, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, man.
Cheers,
Thanks.
Tony. We will definitely connect. I love your call to action. I do the live streaming thing, and every time I end every one of my scopes with a simple thing, I said, do me a favor, find a way to show you care, go above and beyond to let someone know that you care. And it's pretty simple. And I can tell you, I was giving an important speech in my space for just what I was doing this week, and the amount of people that reached out to me that morning, and it was Marcus Sheridan and Jay Baer and Brian Kramer and Ted Rubin. I woke up that morning, I had posted the night before, and I had like 86 people that had messaged me just saying, go do it. And it was, most of them were 2 words or 3 words, but I can tell you each one of those had an impact and allowed me to do what I did on stage. And I think of it as like, you don't even need an initiative or anything. And I think that there's an art, and it's so easy. Yet oftentimes, like you said, you're teaching a brand to talk to their customers, yet it sounds easy, but they're not doing it. So I love the call to action. I will take the challenge, and I will promote the challenge. Thank you so much for joining us, and we love kind of promoting the message across the board, because it's been 3 episodes, and it's been my 3 favorite Fridays of the year. So I love it.
Let's do it again sometime. Brian, be well.
All right, you got it. Love you guys.
Hey, Brian, no let up.
No let up, baby.
So long, Ted. I love you.
Love you, man.